On behalf of the ACLU of Hawai and HuliHIA, thank you to our panelists and the audience for joining us tonight. My name is Monica Espitia, and I'm the ACLU of Hawai Smart Justice Campaign Director. We are here because the prosecutor is one of the most powerful people in Hawaii County. ACLU Smart Justice Campaign is part of a national initiative to decarcerate the nation and Hawaii by 50% while combating the racial disparities in the criminal legal system. That means that we recognize that far too many people in the US, namely Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, in Hawaii this means Kanaka Maoli, and Pacifica people are disproportionately policed, arrested, and incarcerated. We seek to empower people who have been directly impacted and our allies with the tools and resources to change the system, not only in courtrooms, which is what we are known for, but also at our state legislature and in our communities. See, we believe that the power is in our communities. The power is in each of us to make the world what we think it should be. It could and should be. And the responsibility is ultimately on all of us to speak truth to power and hold our elected officials accountable. Now, the ACLU does not endorse or oppose candidates, but we do want every single person on the island of Hawaii to know what a prosecutor does, the power they yield, and we want voters to know that they have a direct say in who holds that power. We've done candidate surveys, and through this forum, we hope that every single person in every neighborhood in Hawaii is talking about this very important chance we have to change our landscape that will have a direct impact on the well-being of our community, your community. That's why this forum is done for the island of Hawaii by community members on the island of Hawaii. I'd like to introduce to you our moderators, Ian Paleka, who will be moderating the first half of the forum. Ian is an active member of Menopa'a, a reentry organization whose mission is to be of service in the community with intent and purpose, and to foster partnerships and collaborations with other organizations in their community. Ian is also involved in Kanaka Opuna, an organization whose mission is based on people helping people, and he's also a member of HuliHIA. The second part of the forum will be moderated by Taylor Quanat. Taylor was born in Kona and raised in every other town on Big Island. She graduated from Ke'alekene, sorry, I messed that up, Ke'alakehe High School, and furthered her education at the University of Tsukuba, majoring in international and social studies. After graduating, she returned home committed to helping our community defeat its social illnesses. She's a Kuleana Academy graduate. She's a guardian. She's also a board member of Young Progressives Demanding Action and housing-based case manager at the Family Assessment Center. She's also a commissioner for the first ever Hawaii State Youth Commission. And now I will turn it over to Ian. Ian, take it away.
Hello and welcome. We are so pleased that you are joining us this evening for the 2020 Hawaii Prosecutor Candidate Forum, proudly presented by HuliHIA in partnership with the ACLU. HuliHIA is a group of people committed to educating and empowering the people of Hawaii with principles of equity and justice, demanding accountability and transparency from our government officials. Now, we are going to review the rules and introduce the candidates running for Hawaii Prosecutor who are with us this evening. Here are the straightforward rules. There are 11 main questions to start with, ending the forum with 12 rapid-fire questions. For the 11 main questions, you will have a minute each to respond. With limited time and to keep things running smoothly, we will not have time for candidate rebuttals, and each candidate's mic will be muted until their turn to speak. We will use an internal timer, and we're going to try to stick to the schedule to get through all of our questions we have planned for this evening. 10 seconds before your time is up, you will hear a single bell. If you go over the time by 10 seconds, you will hear a double bell, and we will mute you so we can move on to the next candidate or question. We ask that you answer each question directly. If I do not feel you've answered the question, I will follow up with you. We will be rotating the order of candidates for each question. The candidates joining us today are Jared Kamakakulani AUNA and Christopher Bridges. We extended an invitation to Keldon Walgen, but he was unable to attend. We will begin with each candidate giving an opening statement. You each have 2 minutes. Jared, you're up first.
Aloha kako o Val Jared Kamakakulani AUNA. I am from Big Island, no hill, Hilo, okay, represent Hilo Town, Big Island. I graduated from Hilo High School, Hilo Intermediate, went to Kaumana Elementary School, but my experience in being an attorney started when I worked with the Kauai Prosecutor's Office. I went to the Maui Prosecutor Office, also worked for the Hawaii County Prosecutor Office. I left last year, and now I am a criminal defense attorney. If there is only one thing you remember from me tonight, remember that I said aloha aina. Thank you. Mahalo.
Okay, Christopher, you're up next.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, ACLU of Hawaii, for hosting this. My name is Christopher Bridges. I'm a criminal lawyer. And when I say criminal lawyer, I mean just that my whole career has been spent in the criminal law. By way of background, I'm a 1997 graduate of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, where I received a Bachelor's of Arts in Economics. From there, actually, while I was there, I was on student council. I was a student senator, chaired the finance committee. I was the vice chairman of the UH Student Caucus, part of the group that was integral in getting a student representative on the Board of Regents for Hawaii. From there, I went to Pepperdine University for law school. I was cum laude 2000. I was number 8 out of my first year class of 240, law review, trial team, research assistant for a professor. And to be honest, you know, when I went to law school, I wanted to make money, but I fell in love with criminal law. So I've been doing that for the last 20 years. I've been a public defender. I was the first deputy prosecutor on the island of Kauai. I was a deputy prosecutor in Hilo at the office here. And I have over 60 jury trials under my belt, solo, not as a second chair. I got over 200 judge trials. I'm the only candidate with the experience running an office, with running a county department. I've been on the Hawaii Penal Rules Committee, the Jury Instructions Committee, the Intercounty Criminal Intelligence Unit. I've taught at police recruit class. I've been an investigator instructor for criminal defense investigators in California. I've also been an AYSO coach in Puna. I live in Puna. I'm a part-time farmer. I got a 16-acre ranch where we raise sheep and all kinds of wonderful food to eat. But the most important thing I raise is 3 young boys, ages 10, 13, and 15. Loves of my life. And I want to make sure that Hawaii is safe for them and it's a great place for them to grow up and hopefully raise their families, my grandchildren here. Mahalo.
Hey guys, mahalo so much guys for attending. Okay, we are now going to move to candidate questions. You each will have 1 minute to respond, and please remember to unmute yourself when called upon. Question 1 is, many drug laws lead to disproportionate outcomes for minority communities and do little to bring about public safety. What changes would you make to current drug laws or the law's enforcement in order to minimize these risks? Chris, you're up.
A question near and dear to my heart. I used to run the drug unit on Kauai, and so I've seen what works with the war on drugs and what doesn't. The war on drugs is really a war on people, and disproportionate, it's a war on people of color. We see time and again, people are ripped from their families, and the results of the war on drugs itself are worse than the drugs. And so we really need to take a look at treating drug addiction and drug use as a public health issue and not solely a penal one. If you're on drugs and you steal from somebody, you hurt somebody, yeah, absolutely. You got to be held accountable in a penal type of situation. But if your only crime is that you have a little bit of methamphetamine residue in a pipe, we need to steer you towards rehabilitation, not towards jail. We find over and over again, minorities are disproportionately represented in our jail. Hawaiians represent 10% of the state's population, but they're 40% of the state's prison population. That's got to stop.
Mahalo. Jerry?
Thank you. It just takes priorities, that's all. You just got to reprioritize the system, focus on violent crimes, focus on people who are perhaps creating the problems in society, and less on penalizing people who are addicted, who have problems. That's all it is rehabilitation, making sure that people can reintegrate themselves and stay active and healthy. And if all we're going to do is start incarcerating people because of their addictions, then we're not doing it right. We're definitely not doing it right. So all it is prioritizing what is most important out of crimes and refocusing the programs. And so I worked in a lot of the different drug prosecutions on the 3 islands. Drug war is not working, and we are going to just redirect resources to where it matters the most. And so I also going to take away some of those mandatory minimum penalties, these extended terms based off of charging people who are with crimes of just perhaps having de minimis amounts of drugs. Yeah. So thank you.
Hey, mahalo, guys. The second question is, as prosecuting attorney, what would you do to develop a trusting relationship with the immigrant community, especially the COFA populations and undocumented immigrants in the county? Jared, you're up first.
I have infinite love for the immigrant populations. Spent some time myself in South America. And so there they also have native populations, and I learned, it was a benefit of me, a blessing even, bendición de aprender español, and meet with different cultures there. And so it's all about just remembering that people have differences from you, but treating them as human beings. And so, yeah, the immigrant population, what are we talking about? We're talking about the Micronesians, right? I've represented them in court. I've represented Hawaiians, Filipinos. I represented all types of backgrounds. I got infinite love for these guys. When you see me down in Mohuli Park, I'm balling with these guys because there is an understanding between us. And that's all it is just being part of that community. So those guys know me. We always ball out there with the Micronesians. Nothing but love for these guys. So just treating everybody with respect. That's all. Thank you.
Mahalo. Chris, you're up.
Issue that comes up, especially with undocumented immigrants, is a lot of times when they're victims of crime, they're really, really afraid to step forward. They're afraid of police involvement. They're afraid that, if an authority figure comes to their home, they risk detention, deportation, denial of naturalization in the future, denial of reentry in the future. And I think we need to make it very clear through community outreach that the police department and the prosecutor's office is a safe place. If you're a victim of a crime, if you're being trafficked, we're not going to try to work with the federal authorities to deport you. We're going to try to make sure that you're safe, that your family's safe, and that you're able to fully access the system for redress of any wrongs that were against you. I started my career as a public defender in San Diego, and primarily, I had a large immigrant clientele base. And it used to break my heart when I would go to jury trial on a domestic violence case. The wife would say, oh no, it was just a big misunderstanding. The jury would find the defendant not guilty. And then just watching this woman break down in tears when the sheriffs didn't even let her hug her husband goodbye before they took him down to the detention center for deportation back to Central America. Really, really.
All right, mahalo, guys. The third question is, what policies would you implement to reduce the overrepresentation of Native Hawaiians in the criminal justice system? Chris, you're up first on this one.
So one of the things that we needed to do is really address what are some of the underlying causes of the disparate treatment of Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders in our prison system. As I said earlier, if you look at race-based statistics, Black Lives Matter is a huge thing nationwide right now. In Hawaii, Blacks represent about 2% of our population, but they're doubly represented at 4% of the prison population. Hawaiians are four times their population is incarcerated versus their proportion of the population. What we need to do is really look at the underlying causes. And first and foremost, that starts with statistics. We need to track the data, figure out who's coming in, who's being charged, why they're being charged, who's not being charged, and see if there's any correlation. And it's clear that there is between their ethnicity and what's happening with them in the court system. That starts with data collection. That starts with having a system of having prosecutors saying that we're going to treat everybody equally without regard to their race, their ethnicity, their gender, their sexual identity, their sexual preference, their religion. Everybody.
Mahalo. Jared?
HuliHIA. Let me tell you right now that that's the biggest, one of the biggest things on my heart is that Native Hawaiians have been treated, Kanaka Maoli have been treated differently in the system. And there is systemic racism there. I've seen it. I've heard the things that these guys have been saying. I've been working in 3 different offices and I've heard the things. I'm not going to repeat it because if I say one of the things that's been repeated, that's just going to be used more. They're going to say the same things. And so first thing is we're going to treat everybody the same. I'm also going to hire and make sure that there are certain offices that have Hawaiians working in your office. Now, this is the thing. This is the ACLU. You guys know the statistics. I want you guys to probe 2 offices. I want you guys to find out, call up, ask how many Native Hawaiians work in the Kona Prosecutor's office. And number 2, how many Native Hawaiians work in the Maui Public Defender's office. And so, look, we're just going to make sure that there's equal representation, right? Because again, there's less Hawaiians working in the justice system. There's more in the prison system. The other thing is we make sure that Hawaiians stop being targeted. One of the reasons why Hawaiians are making up such a lot of the jail system because we're homeless. Okay, and this dates back to the Great Mahele when we lost all of our lands. And then now, again, we all read the DHHL ruling, right? We all heard about it. They neglected their duties to our people. We're supposed to be on the land right now. And so we're going to help. We're going to stop homelessness. That means there's going to be less Hawaiians in prison. Thank you.
Mahalo, guys. Thank you. Question 4 will be asked by a community member.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Alice, and I'm an advocate for ending homelessness here in Hawaii and making sure that affordable housing is available to everybody. But I want to start with asking a question about Mauna Kea. So I'd like to know, what are your thoughts on Mauna Kea and what is its role in setting priorities? And would you prosecute Kiai? And if so, how?
Okay, Jared, you're up first.
That's the question I want to answer. In order for the laws of the state of Hawaii to be enforced properly, the government must follow them first. And what we have seen is that the government has violated the Hawaiian Homes Commission Act of 1920 repeatedly. That's not state land up there. That land is specifically set aside for the beneficiaries. Kokako ohana. And my ruling, my legal analysis after specific and deep study is that the beneficiaries retain rights to the road, which means it's not illegal for them to be present on the road. I am calling today publicly the attorney generals to drop all charges against the kupuna, kukia imona. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Jared. Chris, you're up.
So this is kind of a loaded question. It's one that I've bantied about. It is near and dear to my heart. I have lots of friends that are Kanaka Maoli. I am not myself. I am Cherokee. And so as a Native American, I totally understand where the Kanaka are coming from, why they're protesting. You know, their land from them has been wrongfully taken. And it's been something that's not just on the mountain. We see it all over our island. We know Department of Hawaiian Homelands has all this land down in Hilo, top prime commercial real estate. And instead of having little mom and pop stores, you know, local companies on that land, what do we see? We got Target, we got Walmart, we got Home Depot, we got Safeway. I would love to see everybody down there protesting, shut down the Walmart so we can have a more diversified economy on the Big Island. You know, if we look at the COVID shutdown, it just goes to prove, you know, we've been shooting ourselves in the foot in Hawaii by relying solely on tourism, solely on the big box stores coming in. We need to diversify our economy to have our communities safe.
All right, mahalo, guys. Okay, the 5th question is, in a time of crisis for increased transparency from police departments, would you be willing to keep track of police who lie on the stand and not call them as witnesses? Also, are you willing to look into previous cases that these police may have played a key witness role in? Chris, you're up first.
Absolutely. You know, I have a lot of police officer friends. Most of them are fine, upstanding people, but they're, you know, they're people. And I kind of adhere to the 10% dirtbag rule. And we find that there are dirtbags on the police force too. When I was a deputy prosecutor, I had a DUI trial. One police officer got on the stand, made some statements that just didn't quite ring true with the police reports. I was willing to take a look at it, talk to his partner, put his partner on the stand who gave a totally different rendition of things. I dismissed the case. When defense attorneys came to me and showed me videotapes showing that cops were lying, I dismissed the case. And every time I made a memo to the file, I talked to my boss about it, I talked to their rank about it. And every time that those officers submitted a case later on, they definitely got a second look. Because, you know, you burn me once, that's on you. You burn me twice, that's on me. So I think police officer accountability is something that we really need to look at. If a cop lies on the stand, he shouldn't be trusted and we shouldn't call him as a witness again.
All right, mahalo, Chris. Jared, you're up next.
Transparency is important. When anybody lies on the stand, this is what I would call perjury. And so if someone is lying on the stand, not only should they not be allowed to testify again, they should be charged with a criminal offense. And we have to treat everybody the same. And so if an officer, if this question is about officers, if they lie on the stand, they will not testify again when I am prosecutor. Thank you.
Hey, mahalo, guys. Question 6 will be asked by a community member.
Aloha, everybody. Iopa, Mauna Kea, community activists, and along the lines of transparency, I wanted to ask, what will you do to ensure the transparency in your prosecuting attorney's office? Who was last? Jared?
I want to publish what goes on there, whether it be the budget, how much is being spent, compare my spending versus prior administrations. I promise to ensure that taxpayer money is not wasted. Also, the statistics of who is being prosecuted and what race and when for what crimes. And so when we gather this information, we'll be able to show and compare and properly show that in my administration, people will be treated fairly. Thank you.
Okay, Chris, you're up next. Mahalo.
Thank you. So I think the key to earning the confidence and respect of our citizens is through open communication and transparency. Excuse me. That starts with having a solid victim advocate unit in place. It's imperative that the victim advocates be apprised of any changes to the status of a pending case, and that our actions are centered around keeping all stakeholders, primarily complaining witnesses and police officers, victims basically, in the loop. At the outset, this means that the prosecution team should meet with crime victims and their families as part of the case evaluation process, provide updates, and ask for their input before plea deals are made. On a larger scale, what that means is that the prosecutor needs to seek public input on major cases and policies, major issues, and we should address public concerns as they arise. This is the 21st century. There's absolutely no reasons why citizens of this island should be in the dark as to the workings of their local prosecutor's office or any government office for that matter. As prosecutor, I'm going to strive to implement outreach programs through social media, our website, community meetings and forums, and develop and foster public trust and make sure that the public knows what we're doing at the prosecutor's office.
All right, mahalo. Thank you. Okay, question 7. As county prosecutor, how would you handle a fatal use of force or misconduct incidents involving local police? Chris, you're up first.
So police officers are citizens, and we give these police officers power to do things that we as individual citizens cannot. This doesn't seem right to me. Why should a police officer be allowed to use force against another person when I as an individual cannot use that same force? When police officers use excessive force, you know, that's a question whether it's excessive or not. Oftentimes we find that it is. I think that they should not be beyond reproach. I think we need to do away with qualified immunity for police officers that abuse their powers. We see it not just with the police. At our local county jail, We have 3 jail guards right now that are being prosecuted federally for violating the civil rights of an inmate. They beat him. They're a part of a squad called the Alpha Dogs. I'm currently working on the civil rights litigation in federal court, or excuse me, in state court. We're in state court still, to go after these guys. I think it's imperative that if anybody abuses their power, they need to be fully accountable. Just because you're a cop doesn't mean you can get away with committing crimes. As prosecutor, I'm gonna make sure that that does not happen under my watch. Thank you.
Mahalo, Chris. Go ahead, Jared. It's your turn.
Somebody,
So thank you. I think this question is related to the George Floyd incident. Obviously, I've shown support for Black Lives Matter. If you look at my website and also my social media, AUNA for Prosecutor, Facebook and Instagram, I made a video. Again, I would prosecute any misconduct and officers that used fatal force in that situation. And again, everybody's going to be treated fairly in my administration. Thank you.
Mahalo, guys. Questioning will be asked by another community member.
Aloha again. So in my work to end homelessness here on Hawaii Island, I often see how racial bias in the justice system disproportionately harms communities of color, especially Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, and perpetuates cycles of poverty. I also see how policies that violate constitutional and civil rights often go unchallenged when they primarily impact those communities or the poor in general. So my question is about asset forfeiture, which is an administrative action that allows for the government to keep assets that may be connected to wrongdoing, even if there were never any charges or convictions against the person from whom the property was seized. Would you be willing to support a bill that bans asset forfeiture? And would your office refuse sources of funding that come from asset forfeiture?
Okay, Jared. Go ahead, Jared. You're up first.
Thank you. So yeah, thank you. I was asked this question once before, and my answer is going to be the same, that if you are not convicted of a crime, then we shouldn't be taking away your property. So that's essentially what it is. I also had a big fear that people who are innocent would be affected negatively by an asset forfeiture process. For example, I was talking about kids, and there are kids that perhaps live in the same home, and they could be displaced by the fact that someone is using this method as an attack method to take away a home. I also tied this in to the same situation of people or the office benefiting or profiting off of situation of poverty or prosecution. It's the same way that we send prisoners up to Saguaro, Arizona. Those guys are making money off of us, our taxpayer money. And so they've been able to monetize the system. And so that's the same way with this tactic has been used to profit off of poverty or profit off of prosecution. And so again, my administration is going to be simple, transparent, and that is not going to happen when I am prosecutor. Thank you.
Mahalo, Jared. Chris, you're up.
Yeah, so this is near and dear to my heart as well. Civil asset forfeiture came about because back in the early days of the United States, they would have these pirates, and they oftentimes couldn't find the pirates to prosecute them and hang them at the docks, but they wanted to make sure that their booty that they stole was not given back into pirate hands. So they would file suit against the pirate booty. Nowadays, what we find is the pirates are the ones taking the property. There are 2 types of forfeiture. Criminal forfeiture, which says if you're convicted of a crime, you know, anything that you got from that crime, whether it be the proceeds of your drug sales, anything that you used in the crime, the gun, the getaway car, is subject to forfeiture upon your conviction. I support that wholeheartedly. Civil asset forfeiture is where we take people's stuff because we think maybe it was involved in crime or maybe it was drug money. Oh, you're poor. How do you explain this? $2,000. We're going to take it away. I'm against civil asset forfeiture. I will end it.
Mahalo, guys. Okay, question 9 is, diversion programs and restorative justice can reduce the sentence of those who are in the jails, reduce entanglement with the criminal justice system, and help restore communities that have been affected by crime. What types of diversion programs would you support? Chris, you're up first, Chris.
Time and again, we find that our low-level street crime is composed of three different types of defendants. We get the homeless, we get the mentally ill, and we get the drug addicts. And oftentimes, these people are part of more than one of those groups. The homeless are primarily committing low-level crimes, stealing food, arguing with each other, and here in Hilo, we see it sleeping in the park. These are not crimes, these are conditions of their lifestyle. And so when somebody's homeless and they get caught stealing, we need to divert them to our local social services agencies. We need to try to help them with housing. If somebody's drug addicted, we need to get them into rehabilitation, get them into drug treatment, and try to deal with some of the underlying traumas. If somebody's mentally ill, we need to get them treatment rather than locking them up. So I support expanding diversion programs for all three of those classes of people. I also want to do more diversion for juvenile offenders to try to keep them out of the system. Thank you.
Mahalo, Chris. Jared, you're up next, Jared.
What we are trying to do is not make professional criminals out of people who have perhaps committed an offense out of necessity of being hungry or being homeless. And somehow we turn these people into professional criminals. They go to the system and they become better at it by associating with other people. So we're trying to end that, yeah? Diversion programs, all for it. But when we do it, it should be, if we do it in Hawaii, in the way that we have learned here. We have had methods of conflict resolution that have existed for thousands of years. I don't need a foreign method of diversion to come and teach us here, because our people might not understand that, but they will benefit more, understand it, appreciate it more when, again, it is done in the manner that we have learned, right? Ho'oponopono, right? And then we're going to do some huliHIA ceremonies to make sure that we cleanse ourselves. And again, thank you for your time. I am big on the restoration program. Thank you.
Mahalo, guys. Okay, question 10 will be asked by another community member.
Hello. Hi, my name is Greg LaLiberte. I live here in Hilo. I'm a father of two. I'm a firefighter. I'm also a member of HuliHIA, and I'd like to talk to you today about COVID-19. As you know, COVID-19 is a threat to public health. Jails are notoriously bad for control of infectious disease. The current prosecutor fought against release, even as we see that states on the mainland are seeing that correctional staff and incarcerated individuals are 5 times more likely to contract COVID-19 and 3 times more likely to die. Where do you stand? Thank you.
Okay, Jared, you're up first.
Thank you. I answered the same question in my Honolulu Civil Beat article, and I talked about the 2 things that we needed to prioritize who was in jail. A lot of people in there were not supposed to be in there in the first place. They were just there because they missed court. And so we needed to release them because, again, COVID is dangerous. I'm afraid of it. I hope everybody is taking the measures that we can to protect everybody, including people in jail. We want to treat them as human beings, yeah. Second thing that I talked about, of course, was that the jail renovations were supposed to take place years ago. We were supposed to have a better facility for both the workers and the jail population in order to help with rehabilitation. And again, I also say we need to bring our people home from Arizona, Saguaro. Stop paying them taxpayer money. Let's spend it here. Let's make sure people can rehabilitate at home, reintegrate at home. Let's not stop making people professionals and upgrading their capabilities and sending them away. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the question.
Well, Jared, Chris, you're up next.
Yeah, I agree. The fact that we even had to consider who was going to get released and who wasn't was just a symptom of our broken system. Mass incarceration is an abject failure. It's destroying Hawaiian families. It's destroying lives. You know, the mere fact that we have people that we said, oh, shouldn't be in jail or don't need to be in jail, begs the question, why were they there first? It's because we have this jail, 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 punish, punish, punish system when we should be really looking at rehabilitation. and asking ourselves as prosecutors, not how can I protect the community by locking this guy up for a little while? How can I protect the community by asking what caused him to do what he did? How can we help him? What resources can we give him? How can we make the whole thing better? It also is part of cash bail. We need to eliminate cash bail. Anybody that was there for pre-trial hasn't been convicted of a crime yet. They're there because they can't afford to bail out. You know, I have rich clients that commit vehicular homicides and can post bail. My poor guys stay in.
Mahalo, guys. Thank you. Okay, question 11 will be asked by a community member.
Good evening. My name is Liz La Liberté, and I'm a teacher and a mother and a wife. I live in Hilo. I'd like to ask the candidates, given that there are varying rates of crime in different communities, what do you believe are the conditions that give rise to crime? Thank you.
Okay, Jared, you're up first, Jared.
Poverty, lack of opportunity, and crime sometimes is generational because unfortunately, when a family is impoverished, the homeless family is impoverished, generationally, they're in that situation. I want to work together with the mayor, our next mayor, and I'm hoping that it is somebody who cares about this situation. There is a direct correlation between homelessness and that, and we're talking about all the issues that they face. And I want to make sure that, especially is dear to me, because when I go around town, I see Hawaiians, I see Kanaka Maoris. They're supposed to be on the land. DHHL failed us, but we are in a new year in which perhaps we can change everything by putting the right people in situations to help our people. And once we get the Hawaiians back into homes, then we can take care of their families too, and they can take care of their own families. Thank you.
Mahalo, Jared. Chris, you're up next.
As I mentioned earlier, I majored in economics, and I took the economics of crime at UH. I also studied economics of law at Pepperdine. Big fan of Coase, who says that, you know, if we look at crime as an economic issue, you know, cause and effect, cost benefit analysis, we find that over and over again, poverty is one of the big drivers. People deal drugs because they need to make money. People do drugs because they have some sort of trauma in their life, whether it be because of sexual or physical or psychological assault and abuse when they were younger, whether it be because they have no hope because they don't have proper educational opportunities. They don't have job opportunities. When the best that they can hope for is, oh, if I work really, really hard, I might just make rent this month. They turn to other things to get the two things that I love, dopamine and serotonin. Poverty is a big part of it. Stress is a big part of it.
Mahalo, guys. Taylor?
Aloha, everybody. My name is Taylor Konan, and I'm coming at you live from Honolulu. We've made it through our first part of the forum, and now we're heading into our second part. The second part is our lightning round. It's a series of 12 questions, 12 yes or no questions. When I ask a question and I call on you, please say yes or no, or I don't know. At the end of the lightning round, you will have 1 minute to elaborate your responses on any of the questions that were asked. We have provided the candidates with these questions ahead of time so that they were able to prepare for the questions, so that they're able to answer them quickly and clearly. We will be rotating the candidates for each question. So, are y'all ready?
Yes.
So the first question we have here is, do you acknowledge that systemic racism exists in the criminal legal system in Hawaii? Christopher?
Absolutely, yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Number 2, do you acknowledge there is implicit bias in the criminal legal system in Hawaii? Jared?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Do you, or number 3, do you support an independent prosecuting unit for police misconduct? Chris?
Yes.
Jared?
No.
Do you support collecting and releasing data annually on decision making? Jared?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Number 5, do you agree with expanding the use of diversion programs? Chris?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Number 6, we're halfway there. Will your office commit to not seeking money bail as a condition of release? Jared?
Yes and no.
Yes for nonviolent offenders.
Perfect. 7, is incarceration the most effective way to rehabilitate people? Chris?
No. No.
Jared?
Nope.
Number 8, is houselessness a crime? Jared? Chris?
No.
Number 9, would you prioritize preventative community programs over incarceration? Chris?
Yes. Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Number 10, would private prisons influence your sentencing recommendations? Jared?
No.
Chris?
Absolutely not.
11, would you accept campaign funding or an endorsement from a private prison company or parent company? Chris?
Not a chance.
Jared?
No.
Number 12, would your religious views influence your decision making? Jared?
Yes. All praises be to God.
Chris?
No.
So that comes to the end of our lightning round. This is when you each have a minute to explain your answers that you have given us. Jared, you're first.
I was asked a question about making another unit of police to supervise the police. That's going to take a lot more funding. Again, I don't want us to waste taxpayer funding. What you can do, however, is assign a separate island or attorneys who already work for the Attorney General's office. They got 100 guys over there. Put those guys to work, make them a separate unit that's not involved in criminal offenses. Other questions about rehabilitation? Yeah, you know, ho'oponopono, let's do it the Hawaiian way. We don't need a foreign method. We can use the way that we do. Let's build up our local IA. Let's get back into the low ikalo, and let's put our people back to work. We can change the jail system to allow us to rehabilitate people physically, mentally, spiritually. And it's like I said, for us Hawaiians, we have a direct connection to our ancestors. So when somebody asks me, I can't do religious views, are you kidding me? I am all in with my ancestors and remembering and recognizing that their struggle is my struggle. I carry them with me. I carry the 7 generations everywhere I go. And so when I recognize them, then I recognize myself. Knowing who I am is only because I know who my ancestors were.
Chris?
With regard to police prosecution, I'm a firm advocate of equal justice for all people. That means if you're a police officer, our duty as a prosecutor is make sure that the community sees that they're going to be treated the same as somebody else who harms somebody. That means we need to have top prosecutors on the job willing to take these guys, hold their feet to the fire, and hold them accountable if they cross the line. That being said, you know, accountability comes in many forms. Accountability just doesn't mean locking people up. And if somebody commits a violent crime, I'm a firm believer of the non-aggression principle. You hurt somebody, you break their stuff, you take their stuff, you know, we need to look at retribution. But if your only crime is being poor, if your only crime is being homeless, if your only crime is being mentally ill, we need to look at all rehabilitation programs and get you the help that you need to help break the cycle. It's time for change. Let's do this now.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your answers with our community and giving us more insight to your platform and your vision for Hawaii. At this point of our forum, we're going to give you 2 minutes to give your closing statements. Chris, you're up.
Thank you. You know, we're at a really trying time in our society. Some people are calling it the fall of Rome 2.0. We see we're really divided politically, more so on the mainland than here in Hawaii. And we're fortunate that we have the Pacific to isolate us from a lot of the violence that's taking place. But we see in cities from coast to coast, you know, there are riots, people are fed up. We have an opportunity right now to do something amazing. We have an opportunity to throw off the shackles of the colonial oppressors that have been holding us down as a people. We have the opportunity to make real substantive difference in the criminal justice system. We have an opportunity for reform. You know, it's sickening to see the 1,000 plastic signs all over the island with people's names on it. And, you know, I feel hypocritical. Some of those plastic signs have my name. Not a lot. I don't want 100 years from now my name to be floating in the ocean. I'm hoping that people will find out about their local candidates, find out who's got ideas, find out who's going to really have the will, the vision, and the leadership to make change. I'm the only candidate for this office that really has that vision, that has a leadership experience. I'm the only candidate that's run an office or been a supervisor even. I'm the only candidate that's got more than 50 jury trials under his belt. So I'm the only candidate that can really train up people to help make my vision come true. You know, what we have isn't working. We need to change it now. I'm Christopher Bridges, and I humbly ask for your vote for prosecutor.
Thank you. Jared?
I ran a multi-million-dollar bowling center. I'm a businessman. I studied international business management and economics finance before I went to law school. I'm going to make sure that your taxpayer money is not wasted. My number one priority is missing children. For me, they are not runaways. They are emergencies. But I'm going to tell you right now, personal experience, I gave up protecting our community last year because I saw that the direction was in the wrong place. I left because they mistreated the Hawaiians on Mauna Kea, and I did my studies, and I tell you right now that I am calling for the dismissal of the charges of our kupuna because they are on their own road. Mauna Kea Access Road is now ala na kupuna. And so right now I want to tell everybody I have nothing but love for everybody on this island. I do it because of love. I can do something else. I can be anywhere, but I'm going to run as prosecutor because I love my island, our people. Let's make it safer together. Thank you. AUNA for prosecutor.
Thank you. Thank you both for concluding with those statements. Before I go ahead and close out this forum, there are a few announcements that we want to give to our audience. First one being, people with felony convictions, you can still vote once you're out of prison and jail. However, people that are in pretrial or convicted of a misdemeanor offense are not barred from voting, but must vote by absentee ballot. And another reminder, remember, this is our first election as in all mail-in ballot state. So make sure you get your ballots and make sure it gets received before August 8th, our primary. So my concluding thoughts for our forum, HuliHIA would like to thank the candidates for taking the time to share your vision of Hawaii. Thank you to the ACLU of Hawaii for guidance and the sponsorship. Thank you to our viewers for your time in the initiative to be informed. HuliHIA was created to empower our community by creating opportunities to learn about candidates and their intentions for our Hawaii. The more informed we are, the more confident we can be in electing leadership who is eager to address our community needs. Reflect on what was said tonight. Compare realities, compare visions. Does their prosecution align with your values? How will you and your loved ones be treated by the justice system? Do they have the courage to demand justice and equity? Or will their sentence recommendation be influenced by private prisons? Is incarceration the most effective way to rehabilitate people? Or is there a better way to reduce recidivism? Remember, the prosecuting attorney can foster a community of care, deciding how we treat our most vulnerable community members and ways to heal our punitive history. We are at a point where we need to decide if we want a prosecuting attorney who will continue to incarcerate, institutionalize, or create rehabilitative diversionary programs. Share what was said tonight with families and friends in your community. I would like to conclude our forum today with a quote from Dr. Mohammed Yunus. Poverty is not created by poor people. It is created by the system we have built, the institutions we have designed, and the concepts we have formulated. Your vote has the power to rebuild our broken, redesign our institutions, and change concepts. Aloha for your time. Thank you.